Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I hope everyone is doing well. I think I'm going to start with, much as I enjoy cones of wool for being very compact and nice, I do also like balls of yarn for portability. So I'm starting by just winding a ball of yarn that can rest in my knitting bag so that when this little friend runs out, I will immediately have another. Because that sounds like a nice, restful Sunday morning to me. Even if I know it isn't morning for everyone at the same time. Is everyone working on? Carrie just finishing the increase on the toe of a toe-up slipper should easier pattern repeat now for the live. That is an excellent plan, to do the easy parts when we are communicating and the harder parts when we have time to focus, isn't it? So hello Lee, hello Alex, welcome. I feel like the Sunday morning lives are always a bit more quiet and calm. They aren't quite as popular, but it's nice to have different time zones for different people. 3 p.m. in the afternoon for me. Oh, that is very nice. It's a nice, sensible hour, although I do know people who join us at midnight and 2 a.m. their time, which you do you boo. I could never I could never be up on such. I can't do that anymore. I couldn't do all-nighters when I was a student as it is. I think I did a total of 3 all-nighters that I can remember, and none of them were study related. They were all social in various ways. I just do not do well on little sleep. Father's Day? Oh, is it Father's Day? Is that in the US? It's not the same time in Norway, so that is not something the shops are thinking about at present. 5 p.m. for me from Resource Dragon. The sun is not far off going down. Interesting. The sun doesn't really, barely goes down this time of year, and it does not really get dark properly. You can still walk around 2 a.m. and be able to see what is going on ahead of you, because the sun is not very far off from the horizon. Good morning, Claire. Good morning, Toria from Denmark. Europe is waking up slowly but surely. It's actually one of my favorite times to go for a walk. When I was a student and lived in Trondheim. And good morning, Sid. And you know, most of the time you take the bus, you get to university, you do your things, and traffic is crowded. And then if you go for a walk at like 8-9 a.m. on a Sunday, the roads are empty. It's quiet. Most people don't head out, and it's such a nice, it's a bit surreal because you're so used to the hustle and bustle of traffic. It's Father's Day in the Netherlands. Didn't realize it's not the same day everywhere. Oh, I thought it was the same in Europe. Good morning, madam. Hi. Would you like a snack? Shall we enjoy the moment when you haven't already been begging for some? Okay. There's another one here. You don't have to go completely mad. Hey, madam. Now I'm curious, did I miss it? Ah, yeah, no, in Norway it's Sunday, November 10th, so mid-November is the time in Norway. I wondered, is it the same in Netherlands as it is in the US, or are there at least 3 different Father's Days around the world? Because I knew there were at least 2. Now I'm wondering if there are more than 2, if there might be like 3 or 4 globally, because again, I'm just fascinated by all those little things that you think are universal, and almost none of them are. I mean, I come from the southeast of Norway originally, and when I moved to Tromsø to do my undergrad, so I did my undergrad in Tromsø and my master's in Trondheim, I met people who, and me being used to, big, tall oaks, wide, massive, majestic oak trees, met people who had never seen a tree they couldn't hold around, because typically trees in the north are quite spindly and bush-like because it's cold and windy. And so many of those small little experiences where you realize that what is normal for you is not at all normal for someone else. It might even be exotic and rare. Like, I talk to people who get what I think of as, exotic fruits in their backyard, like lemons and oranges, mangoes, pineapples, and I'm like, wow. But for them, that is normal. And again, when I lived in Tromsø, being past the Arctic Circle, you can't really do fruit trees. They can do berry bushes, but fruit trees, they don't get a long enough season for the fruit to mature. So for them it was exotic that I had apple and pear trees and plum trees in the garden growing up, which is, again, just interesting and fascinating. Our lady tells us Father's Day varies quite a lot internationally, more than Mother's Day, I think. In Finland, Father's Day is the second Sunday of November, 6 months from Mother's Day, so exactly on the other side of the year. But that sounds like in Finland it's the same day as in Norway, middle of November, second Sunday. Let's see. Marianne says it's also Father's Day in France, and I'm not sure why I appear as anonymous. I was playing with YouTube settings. Oh, well, fair, that's... Hope good thing you so looks like you figure it out. In Denmark, Father's Day is 5th of June. That is interesting that Norway shares the Father's Day with Finland, but not with Denmark, because usually the Scandinavians share these things. 1st of September for Father's Day in Australia, as it is the first Sunday of September. There are so many, way more than I thought. But like Owly Lady pointed out, like, there seems to be even more of a discrepancy than it is between Mother's Day. Or do Mother's Day vary quite a bit as well? It's just my tea, madam. These are not snacks. Yeah, I know. Disappointing. So we all learned something new today. I certainly did. I thought there were only 2 different ones, but there appear to be quite a few. 19th of March in Italy. So even within Europe, there are now at least 3 different ones? 4 different ones? Impressive. Hi. Is it time for chin scratches? But anyway, I hope you have a good one if you are celebrating today. Will you allow me to keep winding my ball of yarn? Or are you just so demanding snuggles that is what we're going to do today? Anyway, what are you all working on, or are you just having a quiet day, quiet morning, quiet whenever time is for you at the moment? So it isn't very visible on the screen, my little invisible void, along the preferences of dark backdrops and dark clothing and all of the things, but she is sitting on my lap as of right now. Let's see if she will continue doing that, or if there will be too many interesting things happening downstairs. Yeah, I know there are snacks in that drawer, but you had 2. Mother's Day is the 2nd Sunday in May in Denmark. I think it's the same in Norway, that they are exactly 6 months apart. I'm curious. Sunday, May 25th, 2025 in Norway, which can't be the 2nd Sunday of Is it the third Sunday of May? Many countries, amongst them US, Denmark and China, celebrate the second Sunday of May. I can't find the rule for this one, but it says in Norway it's the 25th of May in 2025, so a bit later than that, but as a person who used to lie with cats, cat cuddles take precedence over all other activities. They certainly do. Absolutely. That is just how it is. Good morning from Germany. I am spinning some yarn from a Romany and Shetland fleece I washed and combed myself. Oh, that sounds like an excellent thing to be doing. It sounds lovely, all that. Knowing all the way. Working on a slipper as I tackled locking some knitwear this morning, but I also have a shawl on the go. That sounds really nice. I'm not very good at having a lot of projects on the go at the same time because I will start forgetting which pattern I'm using where, but I try to have some, like one more intricate project and some easier projects that I can just pick up and put down whatever else I'm doing, or if I'm feeling tired, which is excellent. Alex is having a nice lay-in today, but I want to finish my hand-spun socks today. That sounds like an excellent Sunday project. Good morning. After midnight is technically morning. I suppose, Catherine, that is something that we can discuss, but I suppose that is... It's not technically midnight anymore, so I guess you'll have the morning. It is 9:10 here, so it is a bit of a late, lazy, nice morning in these parts of the world. The Resource Dragon is agreeing that it's correct regarding cat cuddles. Cat cuddles take precedence, but I think Spouse is waking up downstairs, and of course all that noise is going to be very attractive to a feline looking for something interesting to watch. And we are about to have ads in a few seconds, and if you're new here, a lot of you are regulars, we do pause for ads so I can have a sip of hydration. And also so that you don't miss anything. I'm in need of a totally lazy day. I'd even still be asleep if I didn't have to take meds early enough, so this live chat is keeping me not annoyed about being awake. I can understand that. I actually started having, because I also have meds that I should take at the same time every day, and the doctor's instructions are to take them in the morning. And I started having one tray by the bedside so that if I was tired and I wanted a lazy line, I could just take them and go straight back to sleep. But I've also learned that migraine being a condition that thrives on routine, or like, you are better if you thrive with routines. It's better for me if I get up and go to bed at roughly the same time every single day, including the weekends. Like, it has quite a big of a difference, so I've just sort of learned to accept that is just within an hour or two, that is sort of what is best for my brain. But I do remember sleeping in in weekends and enjoying that, but now I find enjoyment in getting up early and having the morning to myself and having the whole day to do things or relax or whatever. But I really do understand not really wanting to when you would rather be sleeping and are annoyed that you have to take meds to keep your body happy. But we do condone keeping our bodies and medication and brain happy and healthy and as good as we can be. Brooke says, it's midnight here, let's do a spell. That sounds like a marvelous, marvelous plan. It will be a rainy spell over here. It has been an impressive amount of rain in the last 12 hours. It started, yeah, maybe more like 20 hours. It started at like 4 p.m. last night and had been going all night. We had to close the windows because it was coming in. And wow. And now it's the kind of back to the... So last night it was raining heavily for a long time, and this morning it's back to like drizzling and on and off, as it has been for the past weeks, which I enjoy much more than having heat waves that we did in the beginning of May. There's a school of thought that both knitting needles and spindles are forms of magic wands, so I think most of us are engaged in magic and sorcery. And Brooke agrees, definitely they're all about transformation. But I think there is something to that, like everyday magic, making things, taking care of things, taking care of each other. It's, you know, why not? There is a big magic in caring and clothing and housing and taking raw material and turning it into something else is really, really fascinating. And all of those little tasks that add up into bigger things. We call it Juniary in this part. Ah, because it's cold. That is interesting. May our yarns be smooth and our skeins free of tangles. That sounds like an excellent place to start. I have one, given when older relatives or people pass away, I'm often, because people know I craft, I will often be given small piles of crafter, hoarder loot, like sewing thread and embroidery thread, and sometimes even patterns. Pardon. So I'm always trying to, you know, use them up so that they don't go to the landfill, and that includes things like polyester thread. And I have one that if I cut the thread too long and I work with it too long, it knots up something terrible. It's frustrating. It's also very smooth, and I have to really, really knot it tightly at the beginning and end for it to stay in place. I usually only use it for repairs of modern clothes that are probably full of elastane and other synthetics in part as well, because I'm still going to use up the clothes that I get given, even if they have small amounts of elastane in the jeans and what have you. But that thread is annoying. I can't wait to have used it up. Pardon? Crafter loot. I love that term, yeah. And you know what I mean, right? It's people know you craft. At least I experienced this, and I have several other friends who experienced this too, where someone will either be tidying up after a deceased relative or friend, or they will be tidying up in their own crafting stash with the crafts and things that they never use, or maybe they saw something while they were traveling and they thought about you because you're a crafter, right? You like to make things, and suddenly you have this bag or box or pile of stuff. And me being me, I would rather try to use it up than throw it away, so I usually accept if it is something that I think I'm going to use within the crafts that I normally do. And maybe one day I will use it up, but I suspect I will have received many similar things in that time as well. Good morning, May. It is a beautiful mid-June morning. I do like cones. I have a little cone of wool here that a friend gave me, because I have very generous friends. But much as I like knitting from the cone, it's not very practical when you have a project that you bring with you to friends and family, because it's a fairly easy pattern. So I do roll them up into balls of yarn because they're a little bit easier to bring in the knitting bag than a whole cone of wool. And yank that out when you're visiting someone with a big thud. Here, look at my kilogram of yarn. This isn't a kilogram of yarn anymore. Maybe it's half a kilo? It's significantly been diminished since I got it, so that is something we are getting through. Again, getting through the things that people generously give me is a project of mine, because what's the point of, or what good is excellent materials if we don't actually turn them into fun stuff? And in that vein, use the fun stuff, use the pretty stuff. Don't be like the old people who passed away with that excellent bottle of wine still waiting in their basement for a good occasion, or that perfume, if you can wear such things, waiting for the right anniversary. Use it every day. Fill your daily life with small joys like that, including the crafting stuff. I know sometimes it feels like we will never find something this pretty again and we have to wait for the perfect project, but use it. You'll find something else that you love later. That has always been the case for me, at least. And then you have something that will bring a smile on your face whenever you use it, because that is just lovely. Have the cats decided we are unworthy this morning, or did I miss it? Soot has been on a short visit, graced us with her majestic presence. She came, got a few snacks and chin scritches, but now the spouse is downstairs rattling with cutlery and breakfast, so that is much more interesting to watch than me winding yarn. So she left us again, but she might be maybe back later, who knows? There's a charity group somewhere in the US that connects crafters to families who have had loved ones passed away, and they are left with unfinished projects. The crafters finish the projects for them. That is a lovely thing to do. That is really nice. I know a lot of people here will also donate some of it to kindergartens and primary schools, because, you know, the crafting departments are always underfunded because kids like to make stuff, and you can never let the kids make as much as they want because you can only have so many resources per person. So that is also something that we do. And if I'm given yarn and I'm like, I'm not actually going to use this yarn doesn't really bring me joy, and I don't think I will use it for anything, I do that. I will take it to a nursery or a primary school and be like, do you want this? And usually they must certainly do. I'm finding that I'm having a style and I don't know, winding tension. Okay, I was always taught to wind my balls of yarn fairly light so that the yarn can stretch and move and not be under tension. And it turns out that with the size of my hands, I will wind a ball of yarn, and by the time I'm feeling like, you know, it's too big, it's uncomfortable for me to wind it, it'll be about 100 grams, usually a little bit more, but like that, it seems to be the comfort zone in which I wind, which is always fascinating to me. A bit fun when you wind something and it turns out that A, they're really big, but also they fit into the bowl that my spouse gave me at some point by the time that I give up winding it. But just that it seems to be that I am fairly consistent, even though I feel like I'm always just going, oh, now I'm feeling like I'm done. And then when I look at them side by side, they're all more or less the same size. Do you have that too sometimes, where you think you're just doing it randomly and it turns out you actually have a preference and you didn't even realize? Hi. Yeah, did you come back? Yeah. That is indeed where the snacks came from earlier. That isn't to say that you get snacks every time, my love. We don't get snacks every day. Or every time you come in my life. Even though you are one tenacious madam who will learn to open doors and drawers and all of the things. And you are one of the reasons we need things like safety hatches and child locks, because you are too clever for your own good. Yeah? Yay, kitties? Yeah. I'm not sure she's in the mood to stay though, because I am denying her snackies and she seems to be on a mission. Maybe we can convince her. Aye? Have I talked about my yolk color shawl yet? I have not intentionally. I made a video about it though, so that exists if you want to know the pattern where it came from. This is one of the few instances where I actually followed a pattern. Almost. I did crochet a scalloped edge because I thought the straight edge was a little bit boring, but let's see if I can remember. It is... That is the wrong one. Oh, I guess I should go... Oh no, we have US English and Euro English. Let's do the US English this time, and because the knitting terminology is different. I'm not sure which terminology you use in Australia, but it just so happens to be... Whoops, that's the wrong tab. It just happens to be this pattern, but with a scalloped crochet edge instead of just a straight edge. And I really like these. These are really nice because now in Norway we had a really warm, I talked about this, we had a really warm May, like unseasonally warm, like terrifyingly warm and dry. We were worried that there was going to be that the crops were going to be severely diminished like they were last year, because the crops really need a stable source of water when the sprouts are really small and fragile. But luckily it broke just before it got really bad, and now we're back to having more Norwegian summers, which I enjoy, which is, you know, cloudy, sunny, rainy, sunny, several times a day, sudden showers when you're having a walk, that kind of really moody weather. But that means that it's back to being chilly, and when I get cold I really want to be warm here, and right just around the throat area. Like if I get cold here I will be really cold, but if I can keep this part of my chest warm, I can usually go about working for a while. So I really like things that keep this part of my chest warm, and my neck and my throat. You'll see that when I wear the Suntag as well, that my friend crocheted for me, that it also covers the neck and this area on the chest. That's just my preference. You might have a completely different preference, but yeah, and when I'm a little bit chilly in the morning, these are really excellent. It's that or like an open cardigan, which I don't have, so I should really go get to making some of those. We mostly use English terms for knitting and crochet in Australia, but not entirely consistent. That does make sense. I guess I should have probably guessed that you would be using closer to the English terms, but if you are using the other system, then it should be possible to like reload. Maybe you have to empty the cache for the Drops Design website, and then you'll get a language selection and you can select the other English terminology. They have a lot of languages, like they have Czech, they have Spanish, I think they have Japanese as well. They have like a long list of languages that patterns are translated into, which is one of the reasons I like to recommend it to people who are learning to knit or want to do pattern, because as far as I can tell, they are really good about translating. Not that I can verify most of the translations. Both beautiful and practical looking. Yeah, thank you. I like I saw someone who, instead of doing rib knit here, did, oh, what's it called in English? Like checkerboard, where you do one straight, one purl, one straight, one purl, and then the next round you do the same but opposite, so that where there was a straight, you do a purl, and where there was a purl, you do a straight, and then you swap them like that, and that effect fits really well with this one. So if I make another one of these, I might, instead of just straight rib knit, I might just do that kind of checkerboard, because that was really, really pretty and absolutely something that I want to try out. Still trying to brace myself for Arizona summer. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm built for Nordic weather. I think I would be very miserable in Arizona summer. That sounds rough. And we are about to have some ads again, so chin scritches are in high demand. Is this still just a cup of tea? Or do you feel like it's unfair that I get a snack, or at least a treat, in my teacup and you don't? Yeah, I'd be miffed if I were you too. My shoulder cozy oak is one of my still damp, freshly laundered items. Oh, nice fresh laundry is lovely. Let's see. Some people call that seed stitch. I use the older name, which is moss stitch. Oh, I mean, lover of all things plant, I think I'm gonna adopt calling it a moss stitch. That is lovely. That makes me even more wanting to make another one of these just to make the moss stitch. Did you hear the bird? Yeah, I know there are birds outside, but you can sit in the window and ek at them. They're not going to come inside, hopefully. You don't want birds inside, that was always too chaotic. But moss stitch, that is adorable. And I kind of get where they're coming from too, because it has that loose, soft look to it. But yeah, I saw someone, I think it was Moon Basket Knits. They're in the community, they did one of these with that kind of stitch instead of the rib knit that is in the pattern, and it looked lovely. Absolutely recommend. Because I've also been trying to figure out, because I don't know if you can see this really well in the video, because it's a bit far away, but it has leaves, because I mean I do like leaves. So you kind of need the rib knit or the moss stitch in order for the leaves to stand out from the rest of the wool. So if you did just plain stitch, the leaves would vanish a little bit more. But I mean, if that is something that you want, you can still do that. It's not going to be a problem. But that is why there is a need for that kind of treatment. I've been eyeing on one pattern that is shoulder cozy plus collar plus hood all in one with buttons at the front. That sounds excellent. I've been considering some, scarf shawls that, again, I really like to keep my neck warm, so I'm always looking for fun scarf things that'll really keep really nice and snug up against my neck when it's really windy and wintry outside, because that is what really will make me feel really cold really fast. If my neck is cold, it doesn't matter how much wool I'm wearing on the rest. Like, I have a big thick wool coat that I inherited from my grandmother that is super thick and super warm, but if my neck is cold, the rest of me is cold. It's like some people are with feet as well. If they're not wearing socks, they're super cold. I knew a person named Moss once. His sister was Clover. Those are very sweet names. We have a couple of nature names like that as well. Like a couple of boys' names. It's common for, like, the Norwegian name for ash, which is Ask, is also a common boy's name. It's really a sweet one. Elm is, I think, usually a female name. It's a girl's name. Do we have? Yeah, I think spruce as well, so gran I've encountered. And then I've encountered a few, especially older generation, where if it's a group of only sisters and they had one brother, he ends up being called brother. Like that ends up being his birth name, like bror, which is interesting. I'm not sure, like, you might want them to have a different identifier other than just brother, but that is a thing in Norway as well. It's late here, gotta go. Good night, Shayla. Have a good one. I hope you sleep well. I'm working on a soft little moss stitch scarf. It's a sock weight yarn and it will be so pretty, but it has taken me years. Some projects are like that. The red sweater that I wear sometimes took me a year and a half to make. And that was like, for a sweater, I don't think that's too bad, having a cross-country move in the middle of it. But some projects are like that. My only problem when I have projects that stretch out in time is that I lose my sort of feeling for the pattern of it. And then when I'm picking it up again, I'm always wondering, where was I in the pattern? How was the repetition? Where am I? Am I going to start in the wrong place? Is this going to work out? And with bigger projects, I can't just do one repeat and then stop and then put it down, although I try to. Sometimes they're a bit too large, like these shawls, the As You Like It shawl, which I'm working on here. When it gets too big, you can't do a whole pattern repeat in one sitting, because one back and forth takes you over half an hour, so that can be a little bit challenging too. So I find that I need to work on it a little bit regularly enough that I keep where I am sort of at the back of my head. I guess that's what people use pattern trackers for, and I should be better about that. I haven't had one, but I do actually have one now, and I'm bad. I haven't used it. This is another craft loot that I inherited from someone's deceased relatives. I finally have one of those magnetic boards with a magnetic stick in front, and then you put your pattern, your paper pattern, on the magnetic board, and then you have these two, and then you move them to follow the pattern along. And I've wanted one because it makes it easier to do complex pattern like Shetland lace. I do still in some ways want to do some Shetland lace patterns, and I know I would be so frustrated because I don't like doing increases and decreases and yarn overs when I'm purling on the reverse. I find it very frustrating and challenging to count, because then I have to turn the pattern around in my head, and I get a bit lost. But they're still so pretty, and I still kind of want to do it. I did bypass at one point. I was knitting as a gift for someone, not a cowl like this, but like a cowl that is just straight. You just do a little bit of rib knit at the bottom, and then you just do a pattern and a little bit of rib knit, and then you can have something that you can pull up over your ears, or you can just have it nice and bunched up around your neck to keep you warm. But there are lace patterns, so obviously there are increases and decreases, but not in the pattern itself, sort of not in the project. So it's just one long tube. And since it just goes round and round, there is no purl around, which means I could practice more complex patterns that have increases and decreases both on the knit round and on the purl around going back. It was still frustrating though. It still took me half a year to finish, which should have taken me a month. But that's how it is sometimes when we try to do ambitious things and then we lose patience. And that is something that I'm still having to work with, because there is that part of me that, the part that went to school and was told that you should always try to improve yourself and always try to be a little bit better, which is it's a good attitude to have in general, trying to improve yourself 1% every year or every project or every whatever increment of time that you're going to count. That is a good attitude to have. It's much better certainly than not paying attention to it at all and accidentally getting 1% worse every year, or moving in a direction that you don't necessarily want, but you weren't really paying attention to where you were going. But I also find that trying to do more and more complex patterns like knitting all the time can also be a bit frustrating. Because sometimes I just want to do an easy pattern. Sometimes I'm just gonna relax and do something simple, so like a blanket with the diamond lace, you know, simple. I can just look at the pattern and see what I need to do next, how the pattern is moving. And those are so valuable too, to sometimes to be able to just sit and enjoy the proficiency of the skill that you have acquired so far. To not always strive to do a pattern that is a little bit more difficult or a little bit more advanced, and there is a time and place for that too, but it's also allowed to just sit down and just enjoy the skills that you have accumulated thus far and just do projects that are just comfortable, if that makes sense. You know, you're just sort of relishing a bit that you learned this craft and now you can make these things, and you can make them comfortably without really struggling. Especially if you learned something not too long ago and you really remember what that was like to struggle to learn the thing and wanting to get better. I am noticing that my hand doesn't really fit this one anymore, so one in my raggedy old reusable shopping bag that I should really make myself a nicer knitting bag, shouldn't I? Something like a, you know, Victorian crazy patchwork project, or I do need to tie the ends because certain madams snoozing on my old cardigan that is too small on the work table will very much enjoy to find stray wool balls of yarn and run away with them and hunt them and play with them like the best toy to ever toy. Because wool is the best toy to ever toy. Especially like small balls of yarn that are about toy sized, she loves them. Sometimes when she's being so sweet, she will break into wool storage somewhere because it's very hard to completely keep things safe from soot because she can be very tenacious. So like if she really wants to, she will often find a way, or I will just forget and leave something out. And she will come running to me and yowling, you know, as cats do if you're familiar with them, proud like prey, but she's coming with either a piece of wool scraps from my sewing or a small ball of wool yarn, like super proud of her prey to showing me, and it's super sweet. And I can't really, I mean, she's not gonna get any consequences for that because she's being super adorable, but I do still try to hide the wool yarn from her because she does kick wool yarn and tangle it a bit if she can get her paws on it. But she is so cute. Yeah, we're talking about you, my little huntress. Carrie says, I do one challenging pattern every year, or try to learn a new technique and incorporate into another pattern to reinforce the learning. I also agree with the lean on one, teach one. Now learn one, teach one philosophy. Yeah, it's a good philosophy to have. But yeah, I also like to challenge myself, so one a year is certainly a good attitude to have. I think that, and Resource Dragon says, I think that is where the idea of palette cleanser project comes in. Either a little break in the middle of a difficult project or a little break after a difficult project. I like that term. I can see how that would work, yeah. So you just allow yourself a little bit of an easy, because an easy, I suppose, project that I could be doing here is that the house that we're renting is a bit cold. I think the floors are cold, and I really wanted to do house slippers for guests and just have them in a few different sizes, and those would be super easy projects for me to do, and yet somehow I don't really find the time to sit down and do that. But that would be that kind of palette cleanser project, because you're just doing a bunch of them in various sizes so that guests can have something to keep their toes warm when they're visiting. But yeah, that's a good term for it, to just be allowed to make things, because socks will keep your feet warm. even if they're easy or simple, or if they have complicated patterns, things will work just as well. And what I've found a lot of the time is that even, you know, simple patterns that don't really require much thinking or concentration or pattern reading can still look super striking and absolutely gorgeous, especially if it's scaled up into a shawl or a cardigan or a blanket or something like that. Will look absolutely stunning. So I'm learning, and then that was the whole idea behind the As You Like It shawl that I wanted to make and wanted to have try to make a pattern that people could do, was to have those fairly simple pattern repeats, but then when you change them up, it turns the shawl into something that looks more striking and complex. Like, use the simple stuff as building blocks to build more complex things. But yeah, I'm entirely self-taught in a lot of things. My grandma did help me to learn knitting. Things like card weaving, I would just teach myself with the marvelous resource that is the internet. And I was once talking to a friend of mine who's also a card weaver, and they were having a brocade tablet weaving class. And they were talking about if we should go, if we should sign up, if we should have fun. And I confessed to her that I wasn't sure, because this was an advanced tablet weaving class and I had never attended a single tablet weaving class. So I wasn't sure if if my skills were formalized enough. Maybe I had holes in my education because I had just done whatever seemed to work. She looked at me like, no, you are an advanced tablet weaver even if you haven't attended a single course. That isn't... Like, if there are holes in your terminology, that could just as easily have come from a different class or a different practice or terminology or what have you. But I remember that as a bit of a funny encounter. Because, I don't know, sometimes I wonder if my skills are good enough because I just do whatever I feel like. I mean, I'm not the best at reading knitting patterns, especially about increases and decreases. Pattern diagrams are one thing, but when there's a lot of, you know, that block of text and it's a lot of abbreviations, I get kind of lost in the sauce and I don't really want to concentrate on reading it. So that's when I start just improvising, so I don't have to read the patterns because I can just figure it out more or less on my own, which then of course does not reinforce my ability to read patterns. Pardon? Are we going to have one of those lives again where my throat is not cooperating with me? When Stripy Crayons is agreeing as well, it looks like. I find it useful to have a high focus project and a low focus project. The low focus project also tends to be good for travel. Yeah, exactly. I like to have those, I call them dum-dum projects, that I can bring with me to friends if I'm visiting, because then I can talk just like I'm talking with you at the same time. Whereas if it's a complicated pattern, I can't really do that. Pardon. A whooshing sound in the background? Yes, that will probably be the fan of my computer. Let's see. I think if I turn the noise cancelling up... Wait. How did I do that again? Filters? If I turn it up to 30, does that help? I'm worried about turning it down too much, just because how will you be able to hear me, but I find that interesting because when I stop talking it says the noise is down in the 40s, in the negative 40s, but you can try turning it up to negative 25. I do think I speak louder than that. That was some quick ad. I'm glad you had the quick ad. Ellie lady, that sounds alright. Alex says, I taught myself to spin from YouTube, and when I went to the spinning guild in my neighborhood for the first time with my most recent spin, everyone was like, this looks store-bought, not hand-spun. Yeah, sometimes we forget. Like, teaching yourself is valid, because some people really enjoy and really thrive in the one-on-one environment or in the course environment where they can ask in person. Some people really need that kind of hands-on teaching environment. But I find with YouTube videos and stuff, there's so much you can learn. And yeah. But without having the formal course environment, it can be difficult to know what exactly is going on. Still there, but softer. Shall we try -20? I think that's as high as I can go before it starts clipping into what I'm talking about. I think I'm usually above -20 when I'm talking, so I'm not sure if this is going to be easier for you to hear, because now I'm worried that I need to keep talking loud enough. Madam? No, madam? I definitely didn't think it was perfect at all, but others don't see the small imperfections. They do not. Like, you see all the missed stitches or slipped stitches or whatever in the thing that you knitted them, or the issues that you had. You remembered struggling with the sleeve or the armhole or whatever, and people get it as a gift and they just are flabbergasted that you made it in the first place. It's super interesting. People do not see the flaws, and if they do, and if they comment on it, they do not deserve your gifts. Shall try to do this quietly. Yes, it's me. Is that it? My therm is empty. Not quite, almost. Definitely feels like a quiet, calm day today. Stripy Crayon says that I find that teaching crafts reminds me of how much my own skill has improved. That is so... I always find that scary, because I'm scary of teaching when I don't feel like my skills are good enough, but it is really interesting when I started teaching. I mean, the only formal teaching environment I've been in is university. I haven't really taught my crafts much other than the occasional one-on-one. No formal courses, but I have taught chemistry, both organic chemistry and analytical chemistry, to undergrads. And you're always worried that you're not going to be able to answer their questions. I also helped some students for their chemistry exams in high school when a friend of mine couldn't help them, who was their usual homework teacher. And I was so worried that I wouldn't be able to answer their questions, but I found that even if I couldn't answer all the questions straight away from memory, I could usually sit down and look at it and figure out the answer really fast when we just discussed it a little bit. And that was really interesting to see how far things had really progressed. Owly Lady says, you can also find some very good and thorough teachers online. Not all local teachers are up to the same level. Also, teaching styles vary. Online you can search until you find one that fits you. Yeah, that is the same with like therapists and friends and all of the things. Having online communities really help, because you can actually find someone who actually really fits you. And because that can be a problem, and people don't realize that they can ask for a different therapist or a different teacher, because, well, not in all settings can you ask for different teachers, but in courses that is often the case. But finding one that really clicks with you can be really important when it comes to learning. Thank you for reducing it so much. The music is magically louder from absence of whooshing. May just be my sensitivity though. Who knows? It's hard to tell with these things. And I think some of the songs in the playlist as well some are louder than others, which is a bit can be a little bit noticeable as well, but I can teach people informally and their skills soon surpass mine. I think that's the sign of a good teacher though, because then you spark something to just go on and continue and just do more awesome stuff. I'm always really proud when my students surpass me. Like, of course, there's a little bit of imposter syndrome, but it's also really amazing, especially when you remember. Like, I will remember the students who were really struggling, who couldn't understand the concept I was trying to teach them, and you try to explain it 3-4 different ways, and suddenly you see it in their face, you see their eyes as they finally get it. You manage to find that one kernel of explanation or information or context or whatever it is. You manage to find that one missing piece, and soon they finally actually get it. It's just magical. And I find that it was equally as astounding to teach the students who were struggling as the students who were excelling. Because with the students who were excelling, it's fun because they ask more advanced concepts and you get to talk about things you don't normally get to talk about, and that can be really fun and engaging. You get to really dive into hyper-focus and special interests and that kind of stuff. They challenge you on a different level. And then you have the students who are struggling, who are used to, being disappointed in themselves that they don't understand it. They are just having a hard time, and their self-esteem is low, and they're stressed because exams are coming. And when those students come to you and you manage to explain it, you manage to get them to the point where their eyes light up because they finally get it. Oh, it's just magical. It's so rewarding. Which is one of the things that I always talk about, that it's difficult when I do video content, because if I am trying to show someone how I do a thing, I can't look at their face and see where they're confused. I can't stop when they have a question because I don't know. I just make a video and throw it into the void and hope that I've answered the questions that will pop up. But when you have someone with you in the classroom or in the lab, you see that light in their eye when they actually finally understand the thing that they thought they weren't going to get, and they were going to fail their exam and the world was going to end. And then they get it. That's talk about everyday magic there. We were talking about everyday magic earlier in making things and crafting things and taking care of others and community things and all those things, but managing to get a struggling student to understand a concept they have been just dreading can be so magical. I watched about half a dozen videos on how to do twisted German or Old Norwegian cast-on before I found Andrea Maury's video and finally got it. Ooh, that sounds like the cast-on I'm doing. Like, this is not something that I've learned until a few years ago, really, because when I started knitting online and talking to other people who knit and make knitting videos online, that my style of knitting is super, super dyed-in-the-wool Norwegian, because that is what everyone around me does. That is what my grandma does. That is what my friends do. That is all the techniques that I see all around me of people knitting when I'm hanging out with friends is all in that super sort of, to me, just the normal Norwegian style, because that's what I see all around me. And then I start talking to other people and they're like, no, we don't do it like that. Why do you do it like that? And I think if I had to learn the Norwegian cast-on from a book or a video, that would be one of those where it would be really challenging. Like, usually when I do a knitting video and I'm doing a cast on, I sort of just go, and then you cast on, and whichever method you see fit, because I have no idea how to explain the cast on that I do. My muscles just know, my hands just know. It's muscle memory, and I can just do it quite fast, and I have no idea how to explain it. One thing is talking about knitting straight stitch or purl stitch or knitting two together, but that cast on, yeah. But I'm glad you finally got it. I found someone who managed to explain it to you in a good way, because I don't envy you learning that from scratch. That is something that my grandmother taught me way over 20 years ago at this point. Probably closer to 25 years ago. It's been a long time, so the muscle memory has really had time to settle, even though I didn't really knit as a teenager and young adult, because I didn't want to do all those things at the time. I don't even know a name for the only cast on I can do, because it's also the everyone around me has been doing it. Yeah, exactly. It's just the cast on. It's the cast on that we use. It's the cast on and the cast off that we have been taught. So what am I supposed to call it? Yeah. I found it was an odd learning experience. I went from no way I can do this to this is easy. Yeah, when it clicks, because it looks super confusing, but once it clicks, I remember that feeling as a child too, even though it was long ago, that it was struggling and struggling and struggling, and then if something just clicks, and then your hands are just doing it. And I had the same experience with English, actually. I really disliked English in primary school, you know. I would be like, nah, what is the big deal? Why do I have to struggle so hard with this language? I'm just gonna work in Norway and communicate in Norway and it'll be fine. And why do I have to struggle so hard with this language? Language is really hard. Because I do find learning languages really difficult. And because I was singing so much, I got like a little MP3 player. I saved up money and I got a little USB stick, 1 gigabyte MP3 player. It was fantastic. It worked for so long. It still technically works, but Windows destroyed it by trying to reformat it, and now I can't change the songs on it, which is really sad because it was really trustworthy. It was really reliable. But I would sing a lot, and I mean a lot of the songs in popular media and stuff is in English. So I would sing a lot in English. And around the same time we got a computer and the internet. And I mean, as you can guess, a lot of stuff on the internet is also in English. And then as soon as I started using English as a language, I had the same feeling that all of those years of struggling in school, trying to learn and not really managing to learn spellings and sentence structures and these things, it just clicked. And in secondary school, my English improved exponentially. It was pretty insane to just go from, you know, struggling to much to top of the class. And I credit a lot of it to using the internet to read stuff and reading books and singing, because singing really helped with the pronunciation, because you get that practice in trying to imitate what someone else is doing. But before that, I did not like English at all. So hard. And I've tried to learn other languages since, like Spanish, because it's like, well, it's the second largest language in the world. It seems a very useful language to have, but it still just stays that smattering of phrases and words, because I haven't cracked the code yet, flip the switch that I managed to do with English somehow. So it just, and when you're comparing everything to English, which I've been using as my work language for 15 years by now, nothing really compares. So I don't know. Learning is interesting. I find there's a lot more like light bulb moments than slow accumulation. It's often with the things people are struggling with, they just need that one moment where it finally clicks, and then they finally understand it. Ever since the discussion of your beautiful cowl, I've been aware of my own cold neck and may have to add the pattern to my to-be knit list. I'm sorry that your neck is cold. I also use like shawls, and I don't have shawls, but like scarves. Like I once found a gorgeous wool and silk, I think they're called pashminas, in a second-hand shop for like $10 or something like that. And I've been living in that thing all winter ever since, as my scarf to go, as my go-to scarf. And that also does help in the keeping my neck warm department. But yeah, I really enjoy things that keep my neck and throat warm and cozy. Because it's amazing how cold I will feel if that is cold. And also how much I don't need as much wool for the rest. So long as that area is warm, I'm good to work. And also, it's really nice. I like vests and like suntags and these kind of thing when I'm working, because especially if it's hard physical labor, but it's chilly, like 10 degrees or less, like 8, 9. Like when I was gardening in the Arctic, it would be that kind of 10-degree weather Celsius where it's cold if you're standing still, but if you're working and doing heavy manual labor, it's perfect because your body creates enough body heat to keep you warm, but the weather is not too warm that you get really exhausted from heat exertion. And in the same vein, I like wool that keeps my hands free, because then I can pull up my sleeves and do whatever labor, if that is washing or laundry or cleaning the house or doing the dishes or baking or cooking or whatever, then that works, which I really like at least. And we're gonna have some ads, so I can have a sip of my cup of tea. This is a good way to wake up. It's a nice, calm way to just start the day in the morning and everything. I thought we were gonna have, because there was a spot of sun earlier, I was worried there was gonna be very harsh light and I was gonna have to go pull the blinds by the time the sun came around to my window, but then the clouds came back and now we're good. So natural light diffusion right there for you. I think this one is getting big enough as well. I'm not really noticing as I'm working on it, but are you getting smaller? Kinda. I do like cones though. They are ever so practical for storing large amounts of wool. And you can buy one and there's enough for a whole sweater instead of buying, bags and bags full of wound. They're not balls of yarn when they're in that. And they're not hanks either. Skeins? No skeins. Anyway, the fluffy little balls of yarn that looks like they're wound on Nøstepinne, but have the industrialized version. I feel like at least once every stream I'm gonna have a word where I know what they're called in Norwegian and I know what they're called in English as well, but for the life of me I cannot remember. It's very rude when you know the vocabulary is in there somewhere and you still can't remember. Can I ask what sort of projects are on your to-be knit list? A cardigan at least, yes. Well, 2 cardigans actually, because spouse wants a cardigan too, and I actually have the wool for it. Not in that box apparently, but I have some green wool for me, same as this one. And I kind of want to do, it's the same as my the red sweater that I wear a lot that is full of leaves, but just a cardigan version. And I haven't really thought about all the details like the button placket and all of those things and how they're going to be, but I kind of just want to take that pattern and just cardiganify it. And I know that theoretically I should just knit it as a top-down sweater and then do steeking. But steeking scares me, so I'm not sure. I have the courage to do that. We'll see what I do. I'm not, but I'm thinking about that. At least I have the yarn for both of those, and Spouse as well has a nice. I think I'm going to do at least a video for at least one of them. Might not do both, because it's nice to have a project that I just do either here lives, or like this one is just a white version of the As You Like It shawl that I knitted a black version of for a video, and then immediately started another because I wanted one for myself as well. But it's nice to have projects that I can do in the evening and that I don't have to have the pressure of filming. So I think I'm hoping that I will manage to do those two at some point. I'm probably not going to start them at the same time because one big project at a time is enough. And I might start Spouse's cardigan first. We shall see what we do. I haven't decided on a pattern for that one yet, but I think they're both going to be primarily one color. I'm playing with the idea of adding a little bit of color to Spouse's cardigan, like we could put a little heart over the chest, or a little heart on a pocket or something, because I do want to give them some pockets, just so they can carry their treasures about. I really like, there's this fake honeycomb knit diagram pattern thing where you slip 3 stitches and you knit 1, slip 3, knit 1, and you do that for the entire row, and then you just purl your way back, and then you do the same the second time. So now you have like a lot of floats, and then on the next round you pick those up and pull them up into the middle, and that pulls them, and that creates this really, really nice 3D effect where you get a hole and you have the honeycomb sort of surrounding it, and they are raised like a relief pattern, and then the honeycomb on the inside is deeper, so even though it's just one color, there's a lot of shadow and play with light when you wear it. I think it looks really nice. It's a lot of work, it takes a long time, because when you're doing the slips, obviously you're not knitting, so you're not progressing the knitting as fast as if you're just knitting it plain back and forth. So it does take a long time. So I haven't quite decided yet, but I do like the effect of that one. Maybe we'll just do like the oh, what's it called? The bust, like the top part of it. Maybe the sleeves. We'll see. I haven't, again, since I don't rely on patterns and choose like this is the sweater I'm going to do and this, I'm just going to follow the pattern. We could change our plans as we go. That could be fun. But yeah, and I might do some more cowls. I gave away a lot of cowls like this last year. I knitted a handful of them and gave them away as gifts because they're nice gifts for a lot of people. I might do some more of those because people have really been appreciating them. So we shall see. But yeah, I don't have a firm list, but I do want a cardigan for Spouse and myself, so that is on the list. But I want to do. Yeah, I haven't decided on anything, but I have this is thin lamb's wool, and I have it in black and white that a friend gave me on 1 kilo cones, so I have a fair bit of it, even when using a significant amount for things like stockings and shawls. But, yoke of a sweater, yeah, the yoke, exactly, that's the word. Thank you. But I would like to do a Halloween project of some kind, because I bought a couple of single balls of yarn, single skeins, in a couple of nice warm autumn colors, and it would be fun if I could find time to draw the pattern for, I don't know, some fingerless mitts or something small, just for the fun of it, just to do color work, because I don't do color work that often. I really like lace knit patterns. But that could be fun. I have the yarn for that too. Again, like so many crafters, I have so many materials lying around, and I like to plan for the materials that I have and trying to use the things that I have, even though sometimes I will buy things to complement what I have. But that would be fun. Maybe things are getting really busy this year, so I'm not sure I will have the time this October, maybe next October, but I want to do something like that. That would be cool. I see so many fun autumn patterns crop up around September and October, so I really want to make something fun there. Maybe we'll do, It's the Black Cat channel. Maybe we'll do something with black cats. Come on. What more can you ask for? Black cats and autumn leaves. That actually sounds really cute. But something like that would be really fun. I want to do that, but I don't have concrete, already laid out patterns and things like that. Because often that sort of gets decided when I actually get myself around to actually doing the thing. Don't run away from me, Madam Cone. Stay where you are. When learning, I have found that aging, I'm not only getting slower, but I also learn better with other people. Ah, that is interesting. That is an interesting reflection. Because Spouse's Mother as well, they really enjoy attending courses, paying the course fee and spending time with other people, having a good time socially as well as learning things. So that I can understand that, having that, surrounding yourself with nice friends and having a good time. But yeah, I have so many, I want to do projects, but I haven't planned them out properly, so I'm not sure if other people have similar to-be-made project lists, or if they really get really concrete and be like, I want to do this pattern, I want it to do in this size, and I have all my projects, all my knitting needles and everything ready, and I can just go whenever, because I sort of decide things as I go, or when I decide to do a project, that is where I will finalize the final details. I don't know if that is what people normally do. Then again, normal is a construct, and we do things however we like, don't we? Whatever gets the thing that you enjoy making made is the thing that is the way that you're supposed to do that, and I wholeheartedly believe that. Because when I see so many different ways of knitting and making things, I don't think, oh, everyone else is doing it wrong and I'm doing it correctly. Like, I've heard some people who do knitting YouTube videos that they will get yelled at a fair bit in the comments by people who are convinced that the way they learn to knit is the only way to knit and everyone else is doing it wrong. And I think the opposite. I think it's really amazing that we've found so many different ways of making similar things. I find that really cool, that we would celebrate all these different techniques, all of these different methods and paths to the same result, because that means that if we have different ways of doing things, we have different solutions. If people struggle with one method, maybe they can try a different one, maybe they can intermix it with this stuff, maybe they can, you know, in different ways, so that if you're discouraged from one method because your grandma tried to teach you and you couldn't figure it out, maybe you were a bit young and it was hard for small hands to learn the thing, and you can try again as an adult, but also maybe try a different method and maybe that'll work better. There's nothing wrong with that. My favorite hobby is accumulating hobbies and never actually working on them. Yeah, I have to admit I'm guilty of that too, you know, serial craft accumulator, absolutely. It's one of the reasons I like small crafts, like card weaving, ink weaving, knitting, crochet, and those kinds of things, because they fit in my workroom. If I had a proper sized, full-size loom for weaving fabrics, as much as I want one, it would take up all the space in my workroom. I wouldn't have space for anything else. And I like to do different things, and then when they're small, I can do different things. My list is a vague mental list of, oh, wouldn't it be nice if I made this, and saved patterns in my browser tab. That does sound like a nice way. The only thing that I formalize is projects that I want to do, that I want to make YouTube videos of. I do have a Notion thing for that, but I just throw ideas at the wall, but that is also just, I want to make this thing. Do I have the pattern for it? No, but I will find it if I want to do this project, if this is the next thing I'm working on. But usually I just throw it all in the ideas box and then I see if I want to pick something out of it. It's so long. It gets longer every month. I don't think we'll ever get to the end of it. It just keeps growing out of my hands, and then I'll have to start a new one because I'll probably crash Notion at some point. My to be knit list is huge. I have the yarn and needles and patterns for some of them and have started a few. That is good. Having started some is very good. But I think my to be made list is always going to be longer than my actual ability to make them, because it's only 2 pairs of hands and all of the stuff in the world. I totally relate with what you're saying. If it weren't for YouTube, I never would have been able to learn how to knit. Yeah, I think YouTube is so valuable, or like videos and video resources are so valuable for learning, because not everyone have access to people who can teach them in person, and not everyone is going to have access to a person who could teach them in a method that works for them. And I mean, I remember that just being left-handed, of all things, was a challenge to some teachers, because they couldn't figure out how to teach me because they couldn't mirror things, and they got intimidated, and then they wouldn't want to teach me. And when you live in a small place, that can mean that you don't get to learn the skill that everyone else are learning because your teacher isn't able to teach you. So with YouTube and with videos and the internet, that is really a really good benefit that I think can really help a lot of people, that if you don't want to learn or can't learn the way that the majority of people around you are learning, then maybe there will be someone with a similar challenge that you have online who can show you how they do things, and suddenly you can join everyone in knowing how to do the thing as well. Because teachers are human, they're not always gonna know how to train someone in a way, but yeah. I know someone who would crochet one-handed, and they would get a clamp on the table, and they would attach, like they would screw the crochet hook to the clamp, and then they would work with the crochet hook rigid, and they would move the cloth around as they were moving, which is like the exact opposite of what most crochet people are doing when they're crocheting with 2 hands. They will hold it in one hand and moving around, and then the crochet needle is the one that keeps moving. And they did it the opposite way, and it's so cool that people just find ways to make their body work for them, which I think is really amazing. So the internet is definitely helping in that regard, and showing people that they can do the thing, because you can do the thing. I want you to do the thing. I want you to craft all of the things and make all of the cool things, and imposter syndrome be damned. It's I find with knitting methods it all depends. So for example, I do most of my knitting in a regional English style and other bits in continental style. For Fair Isle, I use both in one row. Oh, interesting that you're combining them. Yeah, I only know one method, so I couldn't combine them. I know some, like, among people who don't like purl stitches, if they are doing cardigans or scarves or things like that where they go back and forth, some people dislike purl stitches so much that they are teaching themselves to knit both left-handed and right-handed, because if they do that, if they knit one way straight stitches, then they just don't really turn their work around to restart from the other side. They just flip the yarn and they sort of flip their brain, and then they just knit left-handed with straight stitches the back. And I tried it once, and my tension was so different from one side to the other. It would definitely take a lot more practice for me to get to that point, but that is a really cool way to avoid that. To avoid that kind of problem, if that is something that people struggle with. I mean, find whatever solution works for you. There's no wrong way to solve a problem, so long as it helps you and doesn't hurt you or anyone else. Like, go for it. I would like to join a communal project one day, something like where you can join doing the spinning and others start the knitting or weaving. You just don't have the spoons to set up something like that. Oh, that sounds lovely. That sounds so lovely. I mean, I hear about so many people like Evie from Gillian Eve wanting to do all the way from fleece to cloth, like for a Viking apron dress or something like that, like the combing and the carding and the spinning and the weaving and the sewing and like every step of the way. But having someone do it as a communal project where you're doing everything together, that sounds lovely. That sounds really amazing too. I really like that idea. And we are going to have more ads in just a moment, which sounds like a good idea for my poor throat, which is fighting me today. Pardon. You think we're better? I think I want imposter syndrome be damned on the shirt. Yeah, because that is the thing though. I think I like a couple of thoughts in regards to imposter syndrome, like one of them being, I once heard someone talk about how if you're getting imposter syndrome, it's a good sign that you're pushing in the right direction, because you only get imposter syndrome when you feel like you aren't good enough, or maybe you're learning new stuff, maybe you're struggling, which means that you are learning and, you know, mastering maybe a new work environment, learning new things, and maybe it helps you be more vigilant about learning what you're supposed to be doing. And so some people argue that when you feel imposter syndrome, it's a good sign that you're pushing yourself to learn new things. And usually, like, you only get imposter syndromes about things that you care about. If you didn't care, why would you worry that you weren't good enough? So there should be at the bottom some level of, I care about this, that I'm doing a poor job, or feel like I'm doing a poor job, and I want to do a good job. So at some point I learned about that during my PhD, that it can be good to sort of chase the imposter syndrome because it shows that you're learning, and that was helpful for me when I was struggling with it. But also just adopting the attitude of, yes, I am indeed an imposter and I am fooling everyone, and I shall continue to fool everyone like some trickster child of trickery, and until they expose me for the fraud that I am, I will just continue doing the fun things and having fun doing it, and there's nothing you can do to stop me. I mean, I still don't think that I am necessarily the best content creator, YouTuber, whatever you have to create this community, to make these videos. I don't think my editing is the best. I don't think my storytelling is the best. I don't think I have the most engaging personality. I'm a bit quiet, so I guess I appeal to those other people who are a bit quiet and not quite as outgoing. I will often tell my spouse that I think they have a much better YouTube online personality, because they're more outgoing and excitable and all of those things, and yet we can still say, yeah, I think all of those things, and I can still do those things. I can still do it. Like, if I didn't try to create a community, someone else might, and maybe they would, maybe they wouldn't, but I guess I am here trying to do the thing, so I might as well continue trying to do the thing. I might as well continue trying to create videos, and I never think I'll be the best, but I don't want to be the best. I really like, and this is going into a tangent that is more sounding like work than content creation, because a lot of this advice is for job related settings, but the triangle of when it comes to work, there were like 3 different points of the triangle, one being you are the best, and the second being that you deliver your work in a timely manner, and the third being that you are friendly and nice to work with, and you know, comfortable. People want to work with you because you're friendly and polite and all of the things. And you can choose 2 of those. You can't have all 3. And the thing about being the best is that it's really, really fragile. If you are the best, you constantly have to push and push and push to keep being the best, but a lot of the time, people are going to settle for a colleague who isn't the best if they are on time, deliver their work on time, and they're pleasant to work with, because someone who's the best, who is never on time, and not pleasant to work with, is going to lose out, because why would you want to spend your time with a person like that, even if they're the best? That's just... yeah, you meet a lot of those people with that attitude in academia, and they are not fun to work with. People will start avoiding them, and then it gets harder and harder for them to get projects. So I always recommend and try myself to do the other 2 points of that triangle, which is be on time, try to, and if you can't be on time, like give an alert ahead of time, like communicate, and try to be pleasant to work with, because you win so much social capital, I guess would be a cold way of thinking about that, but like you win so much collaboration and fun and all of the other things by having the other points of the triangle, because there's only one who can be the best in any given field, and I don't need to do that. I can be good enough, and that is good enough. We need more people who are good enough because only one person can ever be best, and I don't even strive to be that. I don't see the great appeal, because you sacrifice so many other things. I would rather be, jack of all trade, crafter who crafts all different things and like to learn new things and just dabbles in all sorts of different things, because that sounds like a lot more fun and probably a lot better for my brain too, because that is the feedback that I get on my chemistry work. That is actually what my supervisor told me just this week. I was sending an email to them to check in on them, and they were like, yeah, you did your work well, you were excellent at managing master students, you were really good at presentation, your presentation skills are excellent, but you don't quite have like the super hyper focused brain to be super excellent and the best in analytical chemistry, because I get a bit bored. Even though I'm decent and my hyperfocus is decent, it's the pressure it takes to actually be the best in any given research field is so high that I would rather be good at many different things. Especially for historical types of projects, I think Alex's idea is really authentic. I think most communities would have members with specialized skills, or they would have worked as a team. Yeah, we talk about this so much that you see people like separating wool or spinning or walking wool or things like that are so much more enjoyable if you do them together with other people, where you can chat, because it's easy work, your hands know what to do, but you need to do it for so many hours. Why wouldn't you, bring your basket of wool for spinning and talk with a friend or do other chores at the same time, or again, the other people in your community are also going to need to be doing spinning and weaving and all the things. Like, why not do it together? It's so much easier than sitting alone, especially before the dawn of recorded music and things like that. And you had your storytellers, and you had your musicians, and you had your community to keep you entertained, because why else would you do things? Why are you running away again, Madam Cone? This is not good behavior. Kindly come back here. I'm sorry, Sid. I can bribe you with some snacks. I didn't mean to make the lap temporarily too small. Oh yeah. You are suffering, huh? You are the most suffering kitty to ever suffer. Madame Soot is very food-oriented, to her detriment sometimes. Also, marginalized people are conditioned to have to be perfect at things to be considered adequate. Yeah, it's so much harder to be considered when you have to work 100 times harder than other people. It's one thing that I once interviewed for a job at like a Norwegian Environmental Protection Agency. It's a governmental body. It's probably the wrong term, but Environmental Protection Agency. And they talked about how was I comfortable doing overtime? Was I comfortable, because they had a high-paced, rapid-paced environment. And I remember thinking, wow, the little tab at the bottom that says that you encourage people with disabilities to apply isn't really, you haven't really reflected on what that means, do you? Because if you have someone with chronic pain, like I have migraines, I will get exhausted and tired, and I will work slower. If I'm sick, I can work, but Madam, you got 2 pieces of snacks. That will have to be sufficient. So if they are expecting everyone to be working 120% of a full-time job, like someone who is already tired and overwhelmed from managing their condition is not going to be able to do that, and certainly not without detrimental effect on their private lives. So expecting everyone to just thrive in a high-paced rapid-paced community pushes people with a lot of chronic illnesses out by default, because they are already a lot of the time managing a lot of chronic pain, which really wears you out. So I remember thinking that, you know, this is just lip service, because if this is what you expect from all of your workers, even if they have a chronic illness, you just want someone who you can say has a chronic illness, or something, so that you can say that you're an inclusive environment, but you aren't actually an inclusive environment. You know what I mean? It didn't leave a good feeling. And I think they could tell from the interview that I wasn't impressed when I heard that. So of course I didn't get the job, because sometimes those masking skills just slip. But yeah, I find that really challenging, because they just want someone who can work just as much as everyone else, without considering that when you're managing chronic pain at the same time, you aren't going to be able to, because you're always thinking about the pain to a certain degree. Alex says, I love your quiet vibe, but not everyone will. You can be the best for some, but not for everyone. That's a good way of looking at it. I really like that way of looking at it. It's just like saying that if you are an orange, not everyone likes oranges, but some people do. So or something else. It's a good way of looking at it. I like that. And hopefully we can find other people who like that too. And I find that I started trying to be a little bit more polished, because I thought that was what you had to do to be on YouTube and do video content. And I find that the longer we do this thing, the less polished I am, and the more hopefully authentic we can be, because it's like, well, this is just what I'm doing. This is just what I enjoy doing and being. In the beginning, I wore lipstick for talking head videos, although I never wear makeup in real life, because again, I thought that was what you had to do for video content. And now I am back to no makeup offline and online, and that is just my default, and that is just my preference. And somehow I just thought that the rules were different for video content, but no, getting back to just doing what I do best, just being myself in many ways, even though sometimes I feel like people will comment on them, but a lot of they haven't so far. So maybe we are finding our tribe. Group singing, I am fascinated by group songs. Yes, also so much fun, and good for keeping an even pace if that is important for what you're doing. I was once taught a weaving song, which is, again, you're moving the shuttle back and forth, so having an even pace is very nice. But there are so many weaving songs, or not, work songs, that are super, super nice. Was that the spot? Am I talking too much? You just want a quiet morning, don't you? So you can snooze on my lap and sleep. That's the spot. Lee also says they agree with Alex, the quiet vibe is lovely. It's what makes me click on the live stream as soon as I see it. I'm so glad. It makes me happy that we can have a little bit of a body double, cozy time together. Okay. It's a shame the fan is going so hard that I had to do so much noise cancelling, because Madam is purring and she is so cute. Let's see if we can do... Let's see if we can do the web camera, the old list quality camera. There, your loyal fans are watching you, madam. It's hard being a celebrity. Sut really enjoys, well, she really enjoys chin scritches, but she also really enjoys top of head pats. You can hear it? Oh, you can? That makes me so happy, honestly, like you have no idea, because Soot has a very quiet purr. The first cat that we had, an old lady named Enya, who is in a few of the older videos. We adopted her as an old lady because we felt so sorry for her in the shelter. And she had a super loud purr. And Embla as well, our other kitty, has a super loud purr. But Soot is really quiet. It's insistent, but it's really quiet. She is such a sweet child, honestly. It's really, really sweet. Are you an Enya fan? Well, yes, I am an Enya fan, but Enya was called Enya already from the shelter, actually. So, her being 12 years old when we adopted her, I didn't rename her because that was the name she was used to. So, Enya, my sweet baby, passed away last winter. As is often with these old cats, even though we tried to get her kidney-friendly food, her kidneys were still failing her. So we had to take her to the vet that last time. And she was adopted by an old lady when she was a kitten from the rescue center, and lived with this old lady for many, many years. But at some point, as we were told, she had to go to a elder clinic herself, like a retirement home. She could no longer take care of the cat, and none of her family member could take care of the cat. So at the ripe old age of 12, Enya was returned to the shelter she had been adopted from in the first place. And of course, very few people want to adopt old cats, senior cats. She was 12 at the time, and black cats are even more likely to be ignored in favor of more colorful cats. And she was miserable. She was used to a quiet home, you know, old lady with quiet home and routines and all the things. And suddenly there was noise and she was scared, and my heart just melted. I just fell absolutely in love with her, and then brought her home. And we had lovely, lovely 4 years with her before we lost her. And she taught us that, yeah, we do want to have cats, because it was the first pet that we had as adults. We were about to have ads again. I'm sorry for the intrusion of the in the middle of the story. Is it still my cup of tea? It's still just a cup of tea. But yeah, so Enya was the sweetest, and you know that, like, the way old people, when they're quite old, they get that little papery skin, and it's super, super fragile, but they're also super, super soft. Enya felt like that, like you would lift her up, and she was not like Soot, who is largely muscle. She was soft. She was largely just a soft cloud of cat, and she took to me straight away. She became my cat without argument, and we could sit in the chair knitting or whatever for hours and hours and hours and hours, and I wouldn't leave until I really, really had to go to the bathroom, because she was so cute and she was purring so loudly. And she would join me in the workroom, and often at the end of the day at like 5 or 6 p.m. she would sit outside the workroom, just in door frame, and she would stare at me and be like, "Mother, the workday is over. It's time for snuggles." She was adorable. I adored her. She was such a sweet cat. And then Spouse was kind of jealous, because Enya was very much my cat. She imprinted on me when we arrived. So Spouse wanted a cat to be their cat. And they found that rescue center had just trapped a set of like a cat colony not too far away, and they had brought them to the center, and among them was a litter of kittens. Among them was Soot. I think she was called something else at the time, like Ida, which is a common Norwegian name. And now Spouse fell in love with who would become Soot, and went and adopted her when she was old enough to be adopted, and wanted her to be their cat. But the Soot became both of our cat because we were both quiet, and Enya had helped teach them how to talk cat. And Soot she doesn't really prefer either of us. She will like be whatever there is quiet and nice. But when Enya passed away, and Spouse was looking for another cat to be with Soot now, and found Embla. Of course, Embla, being a kitten, had a lot of energy when we rescued her. So, and Embla is really. It was accidental that they're very similar names, but Embla is super social. She really imprinted on Spouse, and now Soot would come into my workroom instead to get, a bit of peace and quiet from the child who always wants to play. And yeah, so yeah, I am an Enya fan. I like her work, her music, but Enya being called Enya was not our doing. We didn't want to rename her because she was so old, and it was a nice name, so we figured we would keep it. I had hoped we would keep her for longer though, but she got to be 16. I hoped she would be one of those 20-year-old cats, but it was not meant to be, and I cried non-stop for a week, if not 2, and still a lot after that as well. I have never cried so hard over any family relative passing away, because they're not in your household in the same way, are they? Yeah, it's not, you don't see them every day in the same way, and they are not reliant on you usually in the same way. We don't have children, obviously, so it's not the same. But like these pets share your household with you, so you get so close to them, and yeah, it was a hard winter, but you could tell when she got sick that it is time. Brooke says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I've had 2 kidney cats. They were both my best friends." Yeah, exactly. They're so like cats and pets and other pets. When you treat them well and you let cats like, I remember when I was a kid, cats were seen as so sort of subpar to dogs, because dogs people will pay money for, especially if they're specific breeds, and they get them specifically, whereas cats people would sometimes get for free from litters that were accidental, or they would get them as mousers for farms or what have you. There's been campaigns in Norway now where usually, even if you buy them from litters from families, they will charge at least $150 for them to sort of counter that attitude of cats are more disposable than dogs. And I think it is helping. I think it is, getting better, which I think that is really good. But I mean, we have them as indoor cats with a little catio because there are birds of prey here, and I don't want them to be snatched, but also because cats are so hard on the birds in any given area that I don't want them to decimate the population of birds nearby just because I want a furry friend. So we keep them as indoor cats, and they have a catio where they can yell at the birds and lie in the sun and eat the grass and have a good time. And I find that when we treat them well, they get so affectionate and cuddly and loving, and they trust you so much that you really see their different personalities and all of the things. I still cry over Scarface and Persephone. Yeah, I will still cry over Enya if I'm, reminiscing or thinking about her, or something reminds me of her, or something that she did. It was hard when we got Embla, who was a cloud cat, like I called them, like furry, like long-haired fluffy cats, as opposed to Soot, who is like, I call her a silky cat when she has like that short-haired silky coat, whereas Enya and Embla both had the really fluffy poofy coat, and she would remind me so much of Enya in the beginning. And Enya would purr really loud, and Embla would purr really loud, and then that would set me off in the beginning. But Embla is super different from Enya as well. And Embla is a very needy little child who needs to see you, to know that you're there, and will start crying if we have gone to bed and she's downstairs and she can't find us, even though we are just upstairs. You know, things haven't changed. She's not blind or anything. She can go and find us. But she's a very social child and very different and very playful. But yeah. And black cats just became a thing just because they are so much less popular in shelters, like in part maybe because of superstition, but also I think in part because we are often drawn to, you know, orange and white and striking contrast in colors, and black cats aren't as visible. And I even heard someone argue that black cats are less photogenic, so if people want them for like nice Instagram photos, they're less popular. And I'm like, my black cats are gorgeous. I will keep adopting black cats when I can if they are less popular, because they can have a home with me always. They are definitely family members, just furry ones. Yeah, exactly. They definitely are. They become a big part of the family and the daily routine and everything. And when we got Enya, we were like, okay, this is an adult cat. She will pass away in like shorter time than if we had gotten a younger cat. But that means that we can test out if having a cat is for us, or if we need the freedom to be able to travel all the time. And then of course it took a year and then spouse went and adopted a second cat, so she was the gateway drug to more cats. I like cats. Cats fits our lifestyle very much, even though we will watch the dog of our landlord if they go anywhere and we go for walks, and that is also very nice. She's a very happy dog, very cheerful, always happy to see you, and always begging for a walk. It's very sweet. But yeah, they are important, and it's, I think for a lot of us with autism and stuff, it's they don't ask for anything or demand anything, and they're easier to understand because they will purr when they're happy and let you know if they're annoyed. So it can be a little bit heavy-handed with the claws, just because she didn't have good litter and she grew up outside, to teach her to retract her claws when she's playing. But Emma has actually taught her a bit, even though she's an adult, to not use claws quite as much when she's annoyed. Those balls or skein things might be cakes. They're shaped like a sort of squat solid cylinder. Possibly. I think they're called hanks when they're soft, but yeah. Have to go. Wish you all a good day and night. Thanks for the company. Have a good rest of your daily art. Have a good wherever you're going or doing. Yeah, I'm thinking about like these soft squidgy. This is not a new one, so it's not really super clear, but these really soft, I think they're called hanks. But cakes are also, they're the hard ones, I think, but it's wool, isn't it? We're just gonna call it wool, and that'll work for whatever purpose we have. Yeah, am I disturbing you? Madam thinks we are talking too much. This is still just a glass of tea. Cup of tea, sorry. But I hope for those in Europe like me that maybe are starting to wake up, getting ready to face the day. Rook is good. Yes, cakes are firm like a ball. Yeah, interesting. There's so many different words for wool yarn or like yarn in various shapes and form. It's quite. It often shows you when something has been an industry for many years, when there are so many different words for something. It's one of the reasons that, you know, translating knitting or crochet terms are often so difficult, because there's no way you can just translate things word for word, because there's always going to be very specific technical terminology for things. We are having a lot of contrast today with the sun peeking in and out, but oh well. I think we're almost done with the third ball, which means we will have a lot of yarn with which to continue making our shawl. I thought we were going to have time to actually knit on the shawl too, but it looks like we are getting up on 2 hours either way, which anyway is a nice way to start a slow Sunday. So I think we're going to finish this ball of yarn, and then we are going to call it for today and have a nice rest of the day. Although now that Sut is actually falling asleep on my lap, I'm not sure I can actually go anywhere. Yes, I think they are called cakes. I found it very confusing. I always thought of not hanks as balls. Yeah, I find it confusing too. I mean, you have the unwound, is it skeins? I think there's a, let's see, surely there is an illustration. I found that before for yarn shapes, maybe. Oh goodness. A bullet skein, or pull skein, is what they call what you buy in the store typically. And ball of yarn, which is what I'm making, and hanks are for when they're not wound. But they also call skein the things that you have to wind yourself, and this is so confusing. We have wool yarn that is sufficient, but it seems like they call the little balls skeins as well, even though they also call them either hank or skeins when they're bigger, but and I do wonder if thanks for joining me on a relaxing Sunday evening. Love from Australia. Good morning or good evening, Australia. That is in part why we try to do lives at different times, so that we can have different people join us in different time zones and different work schedules and all of the things. Skein is a twisted hank. Well, it's interesting because they seem to be calling skein the stuff you buy in the store as well. But might be regional differences, but anyway, wool works. I had a thought before that, but I lost it, as we often do. Oh yeah, in Norway, when you get things in hanks or skeins, you know, the things that you have to wind yourself on a yarn winder, in Norway you can often buy, depending on how they're separated, you can often buy half, or if they're separated into thirds, you can buy a third. Like you can buy, if the big one is 100 grams, I remember as a student I would buy smaller amounts if I wanted different colors for card weaving. I would buy 50 grams or 30 grams or like 25 grams, depending on how the skein is separated, how many, you know, loops they tie the skein into for organization. You could buy one unit and they would cut it in the store for you, which I always thought was really interesting. I don't know if they do that in other countries as well, but that was actually useful as a student when you couldn't afford a full hank of all of the different colors if you were doing a customer project, but you could afford just the amount that you needed. The machine wound commercial, informally called ball, but in the industry is called a bullet skein. Both can be pulled from either end, inside or outside. Interesting. That is cool. Learning new things every day. Let's see. Ooh, I think we're just about getting there. We are gonna have ads in about half a minute too, so it's as good as time as any as. No, you've not met the hank splitting? Yeah, because I haven't asked for that since I stopped being a student, where I could just buy the whole hank without a problem, but I remember that I was allowed to do that, and that was really helpful. Wool works great. Word descriptors change over time. Yeah, they do. And they also change with cultures and backgrounds and whatever people are doing. Yeah. Because in Norwegian, I would just call this nøste, and I would call both this one and the bullet skein that Carrie told us they call the commercial ones for nøste. They are both like they're a ball of yarn. I will call them the same thing. I'm trying to remember what I call the unwound skeins, but I can't. It's stuck in the brain somewhere. But cones are very useful. Cones I do remember, and they're also pretty easy to remember because of the cone shape and the cone inside of them and all of the things. But don't tear down my wires with your little flicky tail. Yeah, I think this is... It's not the biggest ball of yarn, but I think we shall call it there. It is 11 a.m. in these parts, and it is time for me to go get some lunch. It has been 2 hours of hanging out with you, body doubling, crafting, terrorizing Soot with not giving her all of the snacks in the in the box all at once, because why can't we just do that, and everything in the wet food cupboard while we're at it? You know, it is very rude that we don't just give her everything that she wants when she wants it. But this was lovely. It's always like, I feel like the Sunday streams or the morning streams are always a bit more quiet and calm, and haven't really started the day yet, and relaxing, and I'm gonna enjoy snuggling my little fur baby for a while longer probably, and then I'm gonna go downstairs and have some lunch. So I hope you have an excellent rest of your day, rest of your week, well, start of a new week, I suppose, and however that looks like for you, and we will see you again soon, maybe. Bye!